Good morning. So Thanksgiving week, they ask you ahead of time, about 4 or 5 weeks ahead of time, about giving a testimony. So I'm sitting back here in the choir last week, and Irvin gets up to give his testimony on Thanksgiving week, and I'm like, man, that is exactly what I've been thinking about all along here. So I talked to the guys in the sound booth, and I was just going to have them replay Irvin's testimony from last week. You guys got that ready? Yeah, okay, I guess I'll have to wing it. So anyway, there's an abundance of God's goodness and the things we can be thankful for. And first of all, of course, and I know you hear it every week, but I'm thankful for my salvation. And now, hard to believe, but I've been saved for half a century. So it's unbelievable. I was saved when I was about 9 years old, and I'm 59. So I wish I could say that all those 50 years were lived for God and really serving Him. A lot of wasted years in those 50 years. But I thank God for His goodness to me in that. And, salvation is the most important thing that we can have in this life. And I'm thankful for God allowing me to be saved and allowing me to serve Him. Secondly, of course, I'm thankful for a good wife. And we're going on 35 years, and I look at her, I'm like, I've gotten bald and fat, and she looks exactly the same. And how does that work? But I'm thankful for a good wife, and you college boys, you better be looking for a good wife because it's going to be a help to you throughout your life. Of course, I'm thankful for we have one daughter, and Brother Olson was teaching last week on your relationship with adult children, and now they're young adults, and now really, they're my daughter and son-in-law are in their 30s. But we have a great relationship with them. But it's a blessing. He just said, we ought to be able to really rejoice with our kids that are out living for the Lord. And I am. I do rejoice in that. When Brian and Sarah were dating, he was they were in college, and he thought he was called to the mission field to Mongolia, and we were like, well, okay, that's what we raised her for. And God had other plans, and we're thankful. Virginia's a lot closer than Mongolia, but it was always funny. Preacher always laughed. He goes, I can't wait to see Mrs. Swangim going to Mongolia, So, but yeah, we're thankful for God's goodness in that way too. Another thing, I was reading this week, and I had to think about what I was going to talk about for testimony. I just ran across a verse. The verse, the way I'm going to talk about it, is kind of out of context of the passage, but Romans 14:7, we read this yesterday. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. And I thought about that, and as I thought about that, I was thinking about, friends that we have here at church. And about the last year of John Leach's life or so, he had wrecked his cars, and, he lived in Portage, so I was picking him up on Sunday mornings, and he would be my partner to go out, and I was I'm a shuttle driver for the Portage route. And, John always wanted to be a blessing to other people. So I'd pull up in his driveway, the garage door was open, he'd be sitting 90 degrees or 20 degrees, sitting there with his shirt and tie, his coat's over his arm, got his Bible, sitting in a chair waiting for me. And so I was always thinking, like, Lord, I don't want to be the one to come up to his house and find him, not ready, not there, because he had health issues. So I pulled up one day, garage door was closed. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to find him dead. And so the garage door was closed, and then I started to get out of the car, and then there it starts coming up. I'm like, oh, praise the Lord, he's alive. And but he was always a blessing. He always wanted to be a blessing to people, and he was always talking about, all the kids. He knew all the kids. They called him Grandpa or whatever. Esther Wright called him Uncle John, I think. And he was always talking about all those kids, and I hope that I was a blessing to him in some way, just doing a simple thing, picking him up. And then Dejan as well. I think about that when I think about the last part of that verse, and no man dieth to himself. And I thought, I don't know who it was, Derek, but it was somebody had asked if they could have a copy of his testimony because they wanted to share that with other people. And here a young man 22. I thought he was still 12. He's 22 years old. He looked, with his illness he had, it kept him looking like a little kid. But he was always a blessing to us, and we would try to be a blessing to him. And I always regretted it. When he was in the hospital, it was a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, I could get down there to see him. And I didn't go, and I wish I would have. And so one thing that God has been dealing with me about is just really, am I really a blessing to people? And, when I die, are they going to say that he was a blessing to me and he was a help to me or whatever? It's not so that you can have somebody bragging on you. It's just because, we should be a blessing to one another. And so the Lord's really dealt with me about that, and I thank God for his goodness. Like I said, there's so many things you can just keep thanking God all day. But truly had a blessed life, and being part of this church has been a blessing, and seeing my family, it's just so exciting. And so I thank God for his goodness to us, and to me in particular.